No. Okay, it is demo time. Yes. So let us switch over. Okay. This is my Azure management portal. Okay. In fact, as I mentioned at the very beginning, this is a very user-friendly portal, and I will primarily concentrate on or switch between HDInsight and storage blob. Okay. So you can see I have 4 clusters already created, and I have quite many storage blobs. And let us look into this HDInsight cluster and how do I create a cluster. You can go to new HDInsight. You have 2 options, either quick create or custom create. Okay, when you have quick create, you can just say cluster name, how many data nodes that you need, and the password. As I mentioned, you can use the same Windows Azure storage blob, or you can have the Windows Azure storage blob shared across multiple HDInsight clusters. So it is pointing like if you want to use a new cluster storage cluster, or you can new storage blob, or you want to create an old one, you can use make use of old one. So I will go with a custom create here. This is more detailed. Let's say test 01. Let me see. Most of the time test names would have been taken. So I'll create a 2-node cluster. Okay. And this cluster size depends on the subscription that you hold. Okay. I guess I have some 24 or 27 node clusters that I can create, but at this point of time I will just create 2-node cluster, and in the drop down, as I had already mentioned, you have 1.6, 2.1, 3.0 and 3.1 cluster, and it also highlights what version of Hadoop or Apache Hadoop that is shipped with the version. Okay, and I select Southeast Asia so that it's nearer to me. Okay, that is a region, and I'll just create a user. In fact, I can also very easily enable Hive metastores to be saved in a SQL server. Okay, even that is possible when I'm creating a cluster. So I can use an existing storage or create a new storage. I'll create a new one. As I mentioned, I can specify an account, storage account. Okay, I will say KC test in this case. Okay, 01. Okay, so I am specifying an account name for the storage, and the default storage is depending on how you want to store the data. Let us say this is more about inventory that you're going to store the data, or if it is something related to websites that you're going to store the data, you can specify the container as such. Okay. Okay. This doesn't take uppercase. So now you can also add additional storage to this, but I will pick up the first one. So this cluster will have a default Windows Azure storage blob configured as KC test, and the container will be website 1. Okay, I can create another cluster, make use of the same account, but point to a different container. So it's creating. This is how you create. As I mentioned, you have 2 options to create: quick create as well as custom create. This is for management portal. Let us, while it is still creating the cluster, let us go to our now. What I have done is, if you can see, rather than creating multiple clusters, I created this tweet demo cluster around 11 or 12 in the afternoon. Okay, so I kept it open so that, because creating a cluster takes quite much time. It takes about 20 minutes. You will see from our management portal how long it takes. So what I had done is I had created a cluster in the morning, and I will just try to explain the code that I have used here. Okay? So let me switch to this guy. Okay, yeah. Now you have two things: your storage account and location. This piece, the top piece, is just to create a storage account. If you, I have switched back to the portal. Okay, I think it's past that session. Like even within your portal, as soon as your cluster is provisioned, when you start provisioning a cluster or when you create a cluster, it first creates a storage. Let us see if the storage has been created. Not yet. Okay. So you will see case data 01 storage getting created here. So now why am I pointing here is, all I'm trying to highlight here is the first thing that you need to know is, whenever you are creating a cluster, where am I going to store the data and how am I going to consume the data? Okay, primarily you are going to analyze your data. That is why you're spawning a cluster. So first thing is, have an idea or have a plan to create a cluster and point to the right storage. Okay, in here I have mentioned, okay, I'm on a storage account with case HD05, and where do I need to create storage is South Asia, and this piece will create the storage. And next, as I mentioned, every storage can have a container. Container is nothing but you can consider it to be a folder within your account. Okay, you can consider your storage account as the root folder, and this is the folder is not actually a synonym or replaceable with a account name. No, this is just for your understanding. I'm trying to explain that a storage account is like a root folder, and the containers can be as a containers can be a folder underneath your root folder. Okay, wherein you can start adding your data. Why am I saying that it is not a root folder is the entire data is stored in key value pairs. Okay, the more details is not within the scope of this session, but what I can highlight here is that entire data is stored as a key value pair. So in that sense, a storage account is not a folder, rather your container and a folder will act like a folder and a subfolder. Okay, it's not synonym. That is what I would like to highlight here. They are not replaceable. Now, the second piece is your container. Okay, I am creating a container with the same name as a storage account here. This piece creates a container. Okay, create a storage account, create a cluster for that container, or create a container for that account name, and then finally you use new HDInsight cluster. This is the command, a PowerShell command to create a cluster. If you see new Azure storage account and new Azure storage container, these are part of Azure modules. Okay. Okay, give me a minute here. So all these, all the names or commandlets pertaining to Microsoft Windows Azure Management and HDInsight commandlet, these are the commands that are required to create HDInsight cluster. But if you see the first two commands, the new storage account and the new storage container, these are part of Azure. So you have a module name called Azure, as well as Microsoft.Windows Azure.management.hdinsight.commandlet. These are two different modules. Okay, but you need to have an understanding of both these modules. So whenever you are creating a storage, you need Azure module. Whenever you are creating a cluster which makes use of the storage, you create you call Azure HDInsight. So this command creates a cluster. Okay, let us try this. So this will create this command should create a 2-node cluster for us. Okay. Let it continue. So the first piece was from your portal. The second piece is from your second demo is from PowerShell, and third one is you can also create your clusters from .NET. Okay. So this command list, if you can see this guy, I have in here, you have something called HDInsight SDK, Hadoop SDK as such. Okay, so this is part of Codeplex. We call it as Microsoft.NET SDK for Hadoop. So I have used this package within this SDK within this application, and okay, this is prompting me. If you remember from my portal, I had mentioned, I had given a username and password. This is prompting me for the username and password. This is from the PowerShell command. Okay, so now let us go back to our Visual Studio. So as I mentioned, within this Visual Studio, I have made use of Microsoft.NET SDK for Hadoop, and then there are quite many namespaces that you might need. First thing is, we had seen the same namespace from your PowerShell as well. It's the same namespace, and then you have Microsoft.Hadoop. All of them will be under Microsoft.Hadoop. Okay, and in here I'm listing out the cluster. We make use of certificates when we are accessing the cluster from Microsoft.NET SDK. Okay, now how will you install and from where do you get the certificates? So if you go to your okay, so you can download certificates to authenticate users. Now these are some of the features within which is shipped out of the box when you pick up HDInsight services. Okay, sort of you have a initial security is taken care. Okay, and also your storage and certain things are taken care. But in what I would like to highlight here is you can download certificates on any of the client and make use of the certificates to authenticate yourself and get access to the clusters. Okay, in here I have downloaded a certificate and I am listing out the cluster. Okay, let me comment the create cluster for now. I am listing out the clusters from my HDInsight account. Okay, now if you can see, our KC test 01 has been completed and we have about 6 clusters. Even the KC HDI 06 which I launched from my PowerShell is also getting listed. And if you can see, the storage is yet to be provisioned, but you can see from my .NET SDK, when I ran list out the clusters, I was able to see all the 6 clusters. Okay, now not to confuse you, just to revisit everything, I created a cluster from my portal. Okay, and these 2 clusters, one KC test was from the portal and KC HDI 06 was from PowerShell. The third feature that I would like to highlight is how you can create a cluster from .NET as such. Okay. So again, the first piece is to authenticate the client. Okay, so you can consume this certificate. Any client can consume this certificate and authenticate against the certificate. And then if you can see, the code to create a cluster is as simple as this. Okay, so in here I have created a HDInsight client which says connect, and then cluster create parameters. All you need to do is specify is the name. You are already aware of the location where you want to create this cluster. What is a storage account that this cluster needs to use? What is account key? So now to talk about account key, every storage as it resides on the cloud, you also need to supply a storage account key to authenticate against this storage account. Okay, storage account is the actual storage or the entity wherein you store the data. To authenticate against this storage account, you will have an account key. Now, where will you fetch this account key? You can go to your storage and you can select any one of those storages and you can click on this manage access. Okay, when you click on manage access key, it will show the account key. Okay, so you cannot use the same account key here because after this session I will go ahead and click on regenerate. So even if you try to access this or take a screenshot or try to access this, you will not be able to. Okay, so it's pretty much secure enough. Okay, so you make use of this account key to get access to the storage account, and then within this what container, every storage account is a root folder, underneath it is a container. Okay, so disclaimer again, this is just to make your understanding easier. And every time you create a cluster, you need to provide an admin username and password. So you have username and password that you provide, and then the size of the cluster that you want to create. You can just say 2, 4, 10, or depending on the size of the data that you need, you can go and spawn the cluster. And to create a cluster, all you have to do is this. So if you have already created a cluster on Linux or on HDP, you will certainly appreciate the simplicity in which you can create clusters from .NET Framework and such, or from the PowerShell. Okay, so I myself, a year back when I started, I myself have created clusters on HTTP and have struggled enough. It took maybe a couple of days, not even hours. It took a couple of days to understand the cluster properties and things like that, and to spawn maybe 4 or 5 initially when I started. Now you don't have to struggle much. If you have a Windows Azure account, you can easily create a cluster without much pain, and go ahead with what is your ultimate goal of analyzing your data rather than struggling with creating your clusters. Okay, so let us go ahead and create cluster from .NET as such. Okay, let this run. Now, so if you can see, the KC test was from portal. This is from PowerShell, and automated HDA cluster is from my .NET framework. Okay, so you have all 3 different ways in which you can create a cluster. Now, while this is creating a cluster, I will just walk you through a very simple demo. I'll just take 5 to 10 minutes to actually show an end-to-end demo as well, while the clusters have been created. So I have in this demo, I have already uploaded a Twitter data, and the Twitter data looks like this. Okay, the raw tweets. This is for a movie that I picked up, and I have picked up a RoboCop movie Twitter data, which was gathered quite some time back. So I just wanted to keep the time. I just wanted to keep it very quickly, so I have picked up this demo as such. So this is a Twitter data. Let me first execute, and I'll explain what this does. Okay. Now I'm executing Hive queries. I have already stored the data. I will show you where the data resides, things like that, in a short while. I'm trying to open a new PowerShell ISE. Okay. Okay. Now, what I'm doing is, as I mentioned, I have stored the Twitter data under this storage account, HDI storage 03 blob.core.windows.net. Okay. Now, I am running this Hive query against this tweet demo. Okay. Let me go back to the cluster. I am selecting tweet demo, and this tweet demo cluster uses HDI storage. Okay, HDI storage. I'm clicking on this HDI storage. If you can see right now, the tab has been shifted to storage, and within this HDI storage, I have demo files. Okay. Within these demo files, I have this tweets to BI, HQL Hive query. Okay. Now, what am I trying to highlight here is the syntax in which I have accessed this Windows Azure storage blob, Windows Azure storage blob / demo files, which is a container under this HDI storage 03 account. Okay, so under this HDI storage 03, you can have n number of containers, and any storage can cluster can make use of these containers. Okay, so what I mean to say is you can have n number of clusters pointing to the same Windows Azure storage blob. Okay, now I have executed this Hive query. Let us look at the status. So all these Hive queries, all it did was it picked up this Hive, it picked up this tweet data, okay, and it splits this tweet data, okay. And how did it split the tweet data is I'm using a survey here, okay, a JSON survey to split the data, and each and every tweet will be something like this, an entire sentence, and for each and every tweet in level 1, I'm splitting them, I'm bursting them into words. From there on, for individual tweet, I'm again splitting them, and after splitting them, based on the dictionary, I'm setting them to 1 or 0 for every word. If it is beautiful, if it is, okay, let us say somebody has mentioned it beautiful. In that case, I have set it to 1. And if it is negative sentiment, like the movie is bad, in that case, bad will get a -1. So I have a dictionary which I also configured. So with these two, I have aligned the tables and set individual words with 1, -1, and 0. Okay. So for positive 1, for neutral it is 0, and for negative it is -1. So I have set all these three. And another piece I want to show you here is Hive editor. Whenever you create a cluster, if you can see the cluster that we are running this demo is under tweet demo. Under this tweet demo, you have management cluster, manage cluster. When you click this manage cluster, it opens up a Hive editor. Okay. So what I'll do is I will just execute this Hive queries here, which picks up those individual words, okay, and creates a positive or a negative polarity. For each and every positive and a negative polarity, I'm assigning in the next one, I'm assigning 0, 1, or -1. Okay, let's submit this. Okay. So once this completes, we will have a tweets BI table. Now, we create a cluster, and we also stored our data in Windows Azure storage blob. We are running the Hive queries from a PowerShell. We can also execute your Hive queries from manage cluster dashboard. Okay, you can either choose one of them. Okay, it's not that you need to follow the same thing that I'm doing. I'm just trying to highlight all the features that are available within HDInsight. Okay, so you can use PowerShell, or you can use your Hive editor. You can just go ahead and use your cluster dashboard to execute your Hive queries, and you can very clearly see that status, it is still running. Okay. Now, the last piece that I would like to show here is once this tweets BI is created, you can also access this tweets BI from Excel. So, Excel provides you a Hive OEPC driver. Okay. So I will go ahead and connect to the already existing one, because right now the clusters are still being, I think the query is still executing. It is still running. Okay. So what we'll do is, to save time, I will go ahead and connect to an existing cluster which has got the data that we are looking for. So this will take a few minutes to go ahead and pull the data. Okay. So as you can see, tweets behind, this is the same table that I was trying to create from my Hive or cluster dashboard. Okay, I hope you were able to just get a glimpse of this. So you have tweets BI. This tweets BI is nothing but a Hive table. Okay, and I'll pick up country and then sentiments. If it's moving too quickly, all I'm doing is click next until finish. Let's give it some time. Okay, the KC test 01 cluster that we created from management portal is done. Okay, now so now it's pulling the data from Hive tables. Okay, it's taking some time here. So I will go ahead and show this from an existing. Okay, that's bad. Okay, let us wait for, yes, that's good. So I'm using Power View here. I went to insert Power View, and here is the data that got populated, and I am selecting maps on the top left. Okay, it was bad. It crashed for some time for some reason. Okay. That was my final demo about how you can use Power View and maps. I want to show you how you can pull the data. Okay, let me try one last time. Okay. I'm going to data from other sources. So it's connecting to the clusters, and it will pull all the Hive data from the tables that we are selecting. Okay, it goes to, these are Hive tables that are stored on the cluster, and it uses Simba drivers to connect to the Hive tables. Okay, let me finish this. Okay, in the meantime, I'm checking on my management portal if the clusters got created. Okay, the KC test was from management portal. 06 was from my PowerShell, and the automated HDI cluster, which I created from my .NET, is still getting created. In the meantime, from Excel sheet, I'm pulling the data from the Hive tables. Okay. Now this is to show how you can connect your Hive tables from an Excel sheet. Okay. here, let me go to insert, power view. I'll click on maps. Map, okay, came up. Just sort this little, add colors to it, and then I will say sentiment, count, no blank. Now if you can see, from the tweets that we generated, you can also connect from your Excel, you can also connect your Hive tables and then display or show the insights the way you want to. So from this, you can easily make out that -1 is a negative sentiment, and then 1 is a positive, or orange is positive one. So here it displays from this colorified map. You can easily make certain decisions where you need to target. If it's a product that you are targeting and somebody is not happy with it, you can check out within this region why the product has not been up to your mark, or why people are not satisfied with your product from this region as such. Okay, so with this session, I believe I was able to show you how in various different ways you can create cluster, and how easy it is to create a cluster. In fact, while we were talking about an hour, we created 2 clusters, and the third one is getting created, and each cluster had minimum of 2 different data nodes. Okay, and all in a time of 20-30 minutes, we were able to create quite many clusters, and even if the data nodes is more, it almost takes us the same time. And another thing I wanted to highlight here is, if you see the data storage, it is not connected to the clusters. Rather, the storage is altogether a different container wherein I had populated the data even before creating the cluster, and you can point the storage account to the clusters that you are just getting created. Okay, so let me go back to my PPT here. So I believe we were able to complete all the 3 demos quickly. So this is my final say. So we've been doing big data for a very long time, and it is quite popular. And HDInsight uses blob storage. As you know, it's so much reviews, and it is very much compatible with your HDFS per se. And then PowerShell commands, HDInsight helps to abstract the cluster creation. As you saw, it's much easy to create PowerShell and HDInsight. It's quite easy to create HDInsight cluster from PowerShell and then your .NET SDK as such. Okay, and you can you have an option to purchase exactly the capacity and performance that you need. You can scale up as and when you need. Okay, so if you at this point of time you have very less data, you just need 4-node cluster. Go ahead with this. Stay happy. As and when your business grows, you can add more data nodes and proceed further from there on. Okay. So this is my end of the session. Are there any questions? You can just post your questions if you have any.
Thanks for the insightful presentation, Sunil.
Thank you.
Due to time constraint, I have to